Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die: A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find great classes. You can find our free Sunday gathering inspirational service with medium demonstration included, and so much more. Now, let me introduce you to our wonderful guest. Our guest today is Cathy McHugh, who is a teacher for the blind and visually impaired. She's also an evidential medium and a shining light parent. Her own experience with the physical loss of her son, close friends, and mother have offered her an in-depth perspective and profound compassion for those experiencing grief and loss, and she is dedicated to serving others, both here and in spirit. She is the author of the brand new handbook, which I can show off right here. It's called The Choice to Rise: Free Will in the Face of Tragedy, which explores how we can reclaim our power and find purpose even in our darkest moments. You can find out more about her on her website, cathymchugh.com. And Cathy, welcome to you to We Don't Die.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. Where in the world are you?
Southern California, so
I'm
along the coast there.
on, and I'm on the opposite side of the United States,
Right.
just south of Boston, Massachusetts. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let us know a little bit about your story. Who are you and what happened? And tell us about Sean,
Okay.
etc. And we'll just let it unfold if we can.
Okay. Sure. I'm not sure where you want me to begin with me, or would you like me to begin with Sean?
How about with you? Just a little bit about your background. What kind
Well,
of lady are you?
someone who likes to laugh, I'll tell you that. As you had said, I was a teacher of the visually impaired. I had actually got my undergrad in business. And even that's a story of spirit, really, because I was backpacking in Europe and I was in this church in Paris, Notre Dame, I believe it is. I don't know where I was. I was a kid backpacking in Europe. And something just told me to go back and do special education. So I knew that voice. I was in communication with that my whole life. So I went back and found my way. And I've always loved Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan. There's something about those women that are just rock stars to me. And so when it was the opportunity to teach the blind, every soul, every little cell in my soul lit up. So it was like, yep, that's where I'm supposed to be. So that's how I found my way there. And then Sean is my boy. He's in spirit now. And I don't even know where to begin with Sean. He's my middle child and extremely sensitive, extremely curious. He was in the gifted program, so extremely intelligent and no fear. That's quite a combination, right? And he was some or is, people in spirit will correct me if I use the past term, is someone who would always protect the underdog. He was always that kid who was looking out for any of the kids that people were making fun of. And always very sensitive. It was really interesting, now that thought about it, a perfect story that would explain who Sean really was he was extremely intelligent. It was always hard to keep up with him. And we were in church and he was reading Harry Potter. He was about four. Yeah, about four because it was before he was in kindergarten. And in the middle, and I don't know if do you know Harry Potter, Sandra?
I
Okay.
do.
So you remember, I'm going to geek out here for a second, but Peter Pettigrew, and he was under the Cruciatus curse. So for people who are listening, it was this curse where he would be in pain if he didn't do exactly what the bad guy told him to do. And so in the middle of Mass, Sean pulls on my pant leg and says, and he was deep in thought, and he says, Mom, if Peter Pettigrew was under the Cruciatus curse, was he then sinning? Was he then doing something wrong? And I mean, this is the kind of thoughts that came out of a little boy. And I didn't know how to answer that. So I just told him to stay quiet until after Mass. And I spent the rest of Mass trying to figure out what is the right answer. So that just gives you a little glimpse into the depth that is our Sean. So and as a lot of young boys do, and in this world, he got addicted to, and I never missed the opportunity to warn people about. He was trying to self-medicate because he was so bright, and I think his brain was just going nonstop. And he took something called kratom, Kratom, and it's legal in America but banned in 36 other countries. And it's basically an opiate. And so he was getting that legally without us knowing until he finally came to us, and then really worked hard for a number of years trying to get sober, and struggled with the addiction and overcame it, and ended up being a sober coach for other young men, and was studying psychology, and actually was just had started a new job to work with autistic children. Um, when he had a relapse after a year and a half and took one pill, and it was laced with fentanyl. And so that's what took him over to spirit. So unfortunately, it's not an uncommon story now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
sending you much love. I
thank
know we believe in the afterlife. We know it's real, but we still experience grief as human beings. So I know he is still around and you
you.
are a shining light parent and all of that. So
Yes.
how long ago was that, may I ask?
Oh yeah, of course. You could ask me anything, Sandra. That's okay. It'll be 4 years in August. It'll be 4 years in August. And he and I have always been close. And it sounds crazy, but I'm even closer to him now, which might sound crazy, but he's here. But I agree with you. And just to let everybody know that there's this mom side. There's me as mom, there's me as Cathy, and then there's spirit, my higher soul. And when I'm in that place, this is fantastic. We're on this journey together, and we have all these amazing experiences together. And it's just constant amazement. And then there are days where still I'll just get down into the Cathy story and the mom story and the sad story. And the best thing I've found is just letting it wash through me. Okay, here it comes. Here comes another wave of grief, and just crying and letting it out. And it's almost like surfing or body surfing. If you're constantly going against the wave, you're just gonna get pulled under. But if you see that wave coming, it's just like, all right, here it comes again. We're just gonna ride it out. And so that's what I try to do. Yeah.
Kathy, did you have any beliefs of the afterlife? I mean, 4 years is not a long time. Could you tell us about your spiritual side a bit and then how you know that he's still around? Because we watch the news, we know what happens, not just fentanyl, but other things. There's some terrible tragedies happening in the world. And I know there's many parents watching or listening right now, just hoping to hear something that tells them that, yeah, they really are still around.
Oh my gosh, I could give you loads. For me, I've always had a connection to spirit. I was raised Catholic, and I think that gave me some foundation of knowing that life goes on. I would say I'm post-Catholic now. It's like that's a jacket that just doesn't is too tight for me now, but I absolutely respect every different avenue to get to source. So looking back, I realized, like I used to go to the beach and I would write, and something would write back to me and talk to me. And like the fact that I'm even sharing this on a podcast, you know, but what if I got to lose anymore? Once you've gone through the fire, you're like, I'm gonna share this. And now I know that's automatic writing. It must have been angels or someone else writing to me. I've lost three very close friends, a boyfriend, all when I was young. And so I had connection with them. They would come in my dreams, or I would have strange coincidences between other friends. So I just always knew that they were there. It wasn't even a question. In fact, I was with my mom when she passed, and I was reading her stories of chicken soup for the soul, for the afterlife. And I was so firm in my belief that I was laying in bed with her, and I said, okay, so now, Mom, when you get to the other side, you got to give me a sign. And she laughs and said, oh, Catherine, I'm not into that whole haunting thing. And I laughed. I'm like, I'm not asking you to be Ebenezer Scrooge, but give me something. So I always had this deep foundation. In fact, one of my best friends and I as kids, we would talk about the afterlife a lot. And she passed when we were 32. She was 5 months pregnant and she had a heart condition. And she came to me. So, because we always had this pact that whoever goes first is going to come back and let the other person know. So, I'd always had connections with people that were close to me. And I'll tell you about how I know that Sean is still here. And then that after that, it's like the lid blew off and other people's loved ones were coming. So the you'll see this in the book, but with Sean, gosh, when he first passed, it's just any parent knows it's just something that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And I was completely shocked because I was rooting for him and I kept thinking, well, if I just visualize him being, fine, everything will be fine. And I can talk about in a little bit, I would love to talk about precognition versus manifestation for the parents that are and the other loved ones that are listening. But just for the sign, I'll go on the story with the sign with Sean. After he passed, I kept seeing him in my mind's eye, pointing to his head, and I didn't know what that meant. We didn't know what he passed from at the time. We had no idea. They said it could have been a heart condition. So before I even knew it was fentanyl, he was coming and pointing to his head. So every night I would have dreams of being murdered, and I didn't know why. It was terrible every single night. So that went on for about a month. We had Sean's memorial about 4 weeks after he passed. And a couple days after Sean's memorial, I just couldn't, Sandra, I didn't want to go to bed again and be murdered in one way or another. And I just begged him. I said, I can't do this, please just you come to me. And he didn't. But early in the morning, I saw this tall white being that I've seen before when I was younger. And there's no wings or anything like that, but it's like 8 foot tall, just this white being, this outline. And it said telepathically, Sean's not going to come to you. He's going to come to Joanne. So Joanne's my closest friend from childhood. And I thought, well, that's weird. So I want to take the opportunity just to show people the difference between when you're in spirit and then all of a sudden when you're in the brain. Because in the dream, it was like, all right, that's great. And then the minute I woke up, I'm like, well, that's just stupid. I must have made that up. So a few days, and there's the brain, right? There's that filter. So a few days later, I went out with Joanne. I told her the whole story. We had a laugh about it. And on my way home, I was listening to a podcast of another mom who got a text message of all things from her son who had passed 3 days later. So I turned off the radio and I never even yelled at Sean like this in life, but I screamed at the top of my lungs and I said, I need something like that. The butterflies and the dragonflies aren't cutting it because I was being dive bombed by these butterflies and dragonflies. So I came home and Joanne calls me and says, Kath, who's Clyde Butterfield? And I had no idea. Well, she went home and she never checks her emails. And something nudged her to check her email. So she checks her email and it's from a Clyde Butterfield. And in the body, and you'll see that in my book, but in the body of the letter is just the word Sean, but in bold writing, spelled the right way, and then sent from my iPhone. That's what it said at the bottom. I couldn't figure out who Clyde Butterfield is. We couldn't figure out anything, but I knew Sean was trying to connect with me and I had faith in him. So the next day I was asking everybody I knew, and finally I asked my dad and his wife, and I sent it to them, and her jaw nearly dropped. She said, Clyde Butterfield is my brother-in-law. I only knew him by the name of Putty. I didn't know his last name. And he had died 5 years before. And he was in AA. He was in recovery. He was sober. So somehow it was just so I knew that Sean was trying. Now, then it was like, all right, now I know he's trying to get to me. And I still went into a funk the rest of that day. I just stayed in bed and cried and went into the kitchen in the afternoon. And something told me to go into the garage and check his things. And I didn't, I actually fought. Sometimes I'll like it if I get these directions from spirit. Sometimes, believe it or not, the human part of me will fight. I'll be like, I don't want to go look at his things. I just went through all that before the memorial. It's just too sad. But it was kind of an order. So I went into the garage and I looked through the papers and I found a letter from Sean from Mother's Day, which I don't remember, but it was just a lovely love letter from him on Mother's Day. And I thought, well, that's nice. And then I hear Sean say, that's not it. look under the next paper. So I lift a paper up, and then there's one more page, and it was a picture of a butterfly and a picture of a dragonfly. And the words were written, butterfly and dragonfly, and pointing to that. I honestly cannot remember when he would have given that to me as a child. I'm assuming that he had given that to me as a child. But the minute I saw it, I heard Sean say, "See, Mom, the butterflies and the dragonflies count too." And it was just this huge lesson, right? That it doesn't have to be this brick. I think he knew I needed a brick, but it could be those gentle little whispers, like you were just talking about the hummingbirds outside of your house. I know that that must mean something to you on some level, birds with you. So that was the first sign. And I was determined I knew I could connect with my friends, and I was bent on, getting to him. I was like, I'm still your mom. I will hunt you down and find you. So that started that whole journey of the communication with him. Yeah.
Oh, that's such good news. And I love, it doesn't sound crazy that you're closer to him now. I mean, everybody wants that. Everybody wants that. How
Yeah.
did that progress? Was it through writing? Was it through just, were you meditating like and talking
Well,
to him? People,
that,
we want
yeah.
to know how we can do it ourselves, is what I really want to ask you.
Okay, so that's that, and I firmly believe. I honestly, some people might disagree. I don't think that it's a gift or things like that. I think we're all souls, and we all have this ability to communicate heart to heart. I'd been meditating for 2 years before. I have no idea why. It was during COVID, but something told me to start sitting down and meditating every morning. So again, I just follow the little nudges, that would be my recommendation, just those little nudges. So I had been communicating and with spirit before meditating, but after the email, I did go to a medium. I went to a couple of, I did research and found mediums that were verified. And it was quite phenomenal, the information that they brought through. He brought up how he passed, and a couple of them said the same thing, where he had taken on these roles and these experiences because now he's on the other side helping other young men who have crossed over from addiction. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I had never thought about that before. Now, is that something that when he crossed over, he's decided, I got to put this to some use, right? Or was this something that he took on? I can't pretend to know. But as long, as it's being used for bringing more light into the world, that's really what matters. So I had taken a mediumship class, and really selfishly, just to connect with Sean. And in fact, I would leave before the practice periods. I'd be like, and until the second to the, because I'm like, "Ah, I got the information. I'm just going to go try to practice with Sean." And he would send me signs, and anytime he would send something, I would always thank him. I think that's important. But one time after I was about to leave, I was told, just stay and practice. So that was the first time where it blew my mind. It was with a woman in another country, and all of this information came through. It was her wife, and brought up the name of their dog and how she passed and all these things. Well, and Sean came through to her. And so I have to say that was a jump for me because I was used to my own people, but I had no idea that was I was able to do that for others. And so literally I sat down, and all the dogma and all the thoughts and the programming I'd had almost kind of had to wash out of me. And I remember calling my husband and saying, "We gotta go have some tacos because I need to over a margarita because I need to talk to you about something." And I just shared about all of that. So he's a big supporter now, but I think it took a little time. So, as far as the signs, a great one, and this is one that I think will help people because I know you've mentioned, Sandra, that you have a kitty cat or you had a kitty cat that you absolutely love. And I'm a dog person, Sean is, and we used to call him St. Francis. So the second one of my practices that I had had of my dad's dog, they had to put down the day before. And the next day I was going in and practicing with another medium. And sure enough, Sean comes forward and she says, "Oh, wait, he's lifting something up." And she says, "He's lifting up a dog." He says, tell her I have the dog." And I was like, "What dog?" So I was so skeptical. And this is even who's, I know me, I know, Sandra, you've had experiences with mediumship too, right? But even our brain, even after having those experiences, you can still have that skeptical part. And so even then, believe it or not, I was in a skeptical mood and I said, "Well, what does the dog look like?" And she starts to describe that. "Well, who's she?" And she says, "Well, look, he's saying the woman's name starts with an M." So it was my dad's wife, Mary Jo. So Sean had he said, "I got the dog, I got the dog." And that's just the message that he wanted to get through. So I called my dad and Mary Jo, and I had no idea. But they had put their dog down the day before. And Mary Jo had prayed to Sean because we all know what Sean was like with animals. And she said, "I don't know how you're going to do this, but you got to get Annie, their dog, and you got to let me know you got her." So I just thought that was such a phenomenal story. One that for my son, of course, but for all of us who are animal lovers, there's people there to greet them. And I had another, it just reminds me of another time I was giving a reading to a woman, and it was her aunt that came through, and she's lovely. I mean, I've just met so many lovely people in spirit. I just love them. And so this aunt had given the evidence of who she was and all of this. And then she started talking about this wild beagle. I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you. So I was saying to the sitter, "I'm just seeing this beagle and he's like nuts. He's running around." And the sitter said, "No, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry." And I said, "Okay, that's all right. I trust spirit." Well, I got an email a couple days later. She ran it by her mom. It was her aunt in spirit, so it was her mom's sister. And yes, indeed, they had a beagle when she was growing up, and it terrorized the neighborhood. Like, it was just wild. And so that was wonderful evidence too, because it shows that I'm not picking up something from the sitter. And I bring these stories up just so people know that our loved ones absolutely are there. They're rooting for us. We're not alone in this. I mean, even the fact that Putty, who I didn't know his real name was Clyde Butterfield, my stepmom's sister's husband somehow got Sean help to be able to send an email. The other phenomenal thing about that, Sandra, is that as a mom, I was so proud of Sean. I'm like, "All right, God, that's amazing." And I did a lot of research and I found Mark Pitstick, and who I know you know. And he had connected me with a couple different people researching this electronic communication. And so as a mom, I proudly shared this story about Sean, and she says, "Oh, that's amazing." She says, "What you saw was probably an angel," and blah, blah, blah. She goes, "We're going to put it with all the other thousands that we're getting around the world." So it just shows that they are right here and they want to communicate with us. I
They
know I just talked
certainly
so much, but they
do. No,
really do.
we're gonna ask you to talk some more too. I
Oh,
love that
okay.
you bring up medium classes because I know we share some in common tutors of Carrie McLeod and Phil Dykes with their
Yes.
mymediumship.com
Yes.
page. Nobody
Amazing.
has to be a medium, but to know how your soul receives information, to learn how to sit in the power and boost that spiritual psychic sense, whatever it is we all have.
Yeah.
And there's magic that happens in those breakout rooms. You think it's your imagination, but all of a sudden you feel like I've never met somebody before, and all of a sudden I feel love for them, and then I feel these shared memories, and you
Yes.
put that on auto or loudspeaker, and they
Yeah.
say, "Yeah, I can understand that." Now, not all the time because we're learning and practicing and stuff.
Right.
I recommend everybody just take a class so you know how it works and how to slow down because we have such busy minds and we're paying attention to so much and waiting for the cell phone to ding or the emails coming in and what's on our mind, but we need to be in that present moment for that communication to happen.
Because it's so subtle, and I am glad you brought up Phil and Carrie. It's I've taken a lot of classes from different people in the very beginning, just trying to figure it all out because I was like bent. I was gonna, like I said, I was like, I'm finding you, Sean, But they have Phil and Carrie, one of the reasons I love them is such integrity for spirit, for the spirit world, and honesty, and helping you understand what your clairs are. You can hear them, or you might be able to. Another example for parents or other loved ones, you could feel something. So another example that I had early on, remember when I was saying I was having those nightmares, and then after I found out he was poisoned with fentanyl, now I know why I was having nightmares of being murdered every night, but that didn't make sense to me at the time. But during one of those nightmares, all of a sudden I just felt the strongest feeling, like someone took a finger and poked me in the back. And I woke up from it. I was like, I know somebody poked me in the back and woke me up. And I had a reading not too long after that, and the woman had said, he touched you, he poked you in the back. And that was just such great evidence. Like, so they can, they're, in fact, the first year especially, he would wake me up in the middle of the night and give me like downloads. I don't know how else to say it, but downloads. So I had a piece of paper, and I would recommend that, having like a notebook near your bed, and waking up and having dreams and writing it down, or any little sign that you see, writing it down, and letting them know, hey, I got that, I thank you. But one time he had woken me up, and because I was trying to understand this afterlife, right? And he woke me up, and all I could hear him say was, Mom, it's not the afterlife, it's more like the side by side life. Like, you guys are within us. And then it just helped me understand even more. And one of the things I've learned is to not assume or say that I understand all of it, because my gosh, what if I had thought I understood everything 5 years ago? I'd be limited. I'd be limiting myself from the expansiveness that I know of this universe now. And I know that I've only got maybe this much, like the tiniest bit. There's so much more to learn. So I always like to say what I figured out or what I understand so far, because it's just constantly unfolding.
I love the side by side life. Yeah, people think it's
Yeah.
out there, out somewhere, but it's like, no, there's many forms of energy that can be all the same place at the same time. So I think we're within their world, or like you said, side by side. I want to talk about your book, The Choice to Rise: Free Will in the Face of Tragedy. It's a short and easy read. Tell us why you put it together and what's in it.
So I'll have to be honest, I almost feel like I can't take credit. When I teach, I go from school to school for the students. I work with them one on one. And in the car, I'll just get these downloads a couple of years ago. So I just kept taking my phone and taking notes. So whatever came to me, I just dictated it and then let it go and let it go. And this was going on for about a year. And then last summer, I had zero motivation to write a book. Let me just tell you that, right? Like, it was not in my plans. And I do remember one medium telling me that, and I thought, you're right, please. But I guess she was right. So it was getting all these downloads, and then last summer I just got nudged again to sit down and write it. And so I just wrote it. And it's short, but it's interesting because I thought to myself, well, this is short. But I heard that's all that's needed. And sometimes when we're in the depths of grief, and I've read so many books, I continue to. That's kind of how my brain works. I love learning, and like my friends will laugh that Cathy does not read fiction. I think the last fiction I read was Harry Potter with Sean. Right? I want to know about quantum physics and all of this, and that's how I can wrap my head around it. But when you're in the depths of grief, sometimes it's so hard to think. Your book explained it so well, how our brain just isn't functioning correctly. And I just wanted something small because I think I had wanted that. I would read, but it would be overwhelming. And then I'd have to go back and read. And I wanted something small for myself that I can pick up And depending on what the chapter was, helped me. So one of the shortest chapter in there is about how Sean passed, because that's really not what this story is about. It's everything that came after. And one of the chapters is all about having self-compassion. I think that people are, at least me, all I could talk for is me. And I'm sure there's at least one other person out here listening who has done this, which you're going through grief and you're giving yourself a hard time for eating the wrong things, or not working hard enough, or not going out, all of these things where, God, you're just trying to get through a day. And I just needed someone to say that to me. And so that chapter was me kind of saying that to anyone who wants to pick up this book, that if there's any time you want to have self-love and forgiveness and acceptance of imperfection, it's when you're grieving. And I mean, and in fact, perfection can, this is something, I'm sorry, I'm just getting these. Perfection can actually stop you in a way from, if you're trying to reach your loved ones, perfection can stop you because you're trying to do it perfect, or you think it's got to come through this way and it's going to come through another way. Just being in love with imperfection, being in love with the messiness of it, being in love with the curiosity of it, and how's this gonna show up? One of the ways so before Sean passed, I was gonna get him a husky dog because he just is a husky dog. And sadly, he crossed before that could happen. Well, I had gone to a mother's grieving group and it just wasn't for me. They were all lovely, but there was so much sadness, and there wasn't communicating about, hey, did you get a sign, or did you get a sign? So I left with love in my heart for these women. It was only one, about an hour, but I drove home crying because I felt like I know he's here. I want someone that I can talk to that knows he's here. And I'm at a red light and something tells me to look on my left. And I look over on my left and there's a big pickup truck with the biggest husky dog hanging out the window, just staring right down at me. And I just knew it was Sean just letting me know I'm here. So he will send husky dogs. And here's an example of how I could be blocking out Sean if I went for perfection or thinking I have all the answers. Sometimes Sean will show me husky in a word. Sometimes I remember one time going to a school site, and I heard someone talking about a husky dog. And so they'll show up in all different ways. And so it's just opening your heart and almost having fun with it. Like, how are you going to show up now? Like, what are you going to show me? And our brains will get in the way. Like I was getting husky dogs and numbers, and of course the butterflies and dragonflies. But I was getting that a lot. And so the human brain steps in. Sandra, I even remember where I was when I was driving. I think a lot of this happens when I'm driving because you can kind of zone out, right? And I said to Sean, okay, well, I'm always seeing husky dogs in numbers, like I'm wondering if I'm making this up. Can you show me something totally different? And right then he shows me a hand holding the Olympic torch. And I thought, and of course, there's the brain. Oh, what the heck? I must have made that up. Why? What does that got to do with anything? And I thought, no, 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 trust spirit. So I let it go, and it had been a couple days. And I thought, well, I guess that was just my brain. And that night I was kind of sad and sitting there watching Friends. For anyone who's like our age, we know that show. And one of the characters, Monica, was going in for an interview, and I'm sitting there watching, and right then I could hear Sean say, Mom, look on the desk. And I look on the desk of the guy who was interviewing Monica Geller, and there's a lamp, and it was of the hand holding the Olympic torch, but it was a lamp. And so I just burst out laughing. I'm like, so there you go, right? I think that I don't think that they created that. I think that sometimes they can see things ahead of us. Time is not what it is on the other side. So they might be able to see, oh, it's okay, Sandra's going to see this. So I'm going to put this in her head a couple days before, and then you're just open. You just wait for it to show up.
Those are some happy things. I recommend to everyone to check out helpingparentsheal.org. It's a good first stop and lifetime place because you are shining light parents, and there's something like 40,000 people now involved. It's free. You can be part of a wonderful community. You can join online. I know there's some groups that meet around the world, but it's wonderful. And there's plenty of different books parents have written. There's a YouTube channel that's, even if you're not a parent, you can get to the YouTube channel and see. But it's the best community, and it's a wonderful place to be. I don't have any children, and I don't have any children in the spirit world. I can only imagine it's the worst pain any human being can feel. And to talk to someone and be in an organization with people that have been there, it makes you know that while it's not pleasant, that life can go on and you can continue these relationships. And like you say, have an even greater relationship. Tell us a little bit about that. How, I mean, I'm sure, I'm not sure that you talk to Sean all the time, but you might, and do you
Oh,
take
I talked to him.
notes?
I'm sure he's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, mom.
Okay. All right.
But just to kind of underline and highlight what you said, helping parents heal was pivotal for me. I would say to listen to your loved ones because they'll guide you. I have no idea. I don't even have any idea how I found helping parents heal. I don't have any idea how I found the first two mediums that they'll guide you. Helping parents heal was phenomenal. In fact, I went on there and they would give free gallery readings. And that was really eye-opening for me too, because on one of the gallery readings, I sat down and I just thought, oh, well, I'm not gonna, there's thousands of mostly moms, thousands. It's not gonna be me. And in my mind's eye, I saw my father-in-law who's in spirit, I love that man. I saw him taking Sean through a crowd, like, oh, he's got to get first. He's got to get first. And I thought, what? I thought I was making that up in my head. Sure enough, the medium comes through with all of this information, the day Sean passed, his age, how he passed, his grandpa's with him. And that helped me understand too that, oh, so what I'm seeing, I'm not making up in my head. It's just like Sean says, it's side by side. So you did ask me how I stay in touch with him. Gosh, there's been so many. One of the one of the things I'd want to say about that is even when the medium had said, "Oh, he's helping others," I didn't really thought, growing up Catholic, I think I thought you kind of cross over. And although my friend Cathy would come and explain that she was studying and working on things, so I guess I had a little bit of inclination, but I could tell you one reading I had where I would have others loved ones come, but so I feel like Sean's kind of like we're a little team sometimes because all of a sudden, Sandra, before the reading, I sit and I pray and meditate, and Sean comes in. And I thought, well, I'm making this up. Like, what are you doing here? And he's jumping up and down, so excited. He's, Mom, this is so cool. This is so cool. I brought someone for you. And I thought, all right, now I'm what? And then a young man came in who had passed of overdose, and so it showed me, oh my goodness, there's all these connections that we aren't even aware of. So I will talk to Sean for parents too. I know that I'm coming across as joyful, and I am, because I know that they're here, and I know that that's like kind of like my baseline who I am. But don't let me fool you. There are days where I'm on my knees still, just absolutely sobbing. And there are days where I still get mad at Sean, and he can handle that, and so just to give yourself a little compassion and love for whatever emotions come up, instead of thinking, oh, I can't be mad at them, or I can't this, or I can't that, just letting it flow the same way you would when they were here. Like Sean says, they're side by side. So just having that relationship is also not hiding emotions or trying to pretend that it's just this one dimensional, I have to be perfect, because I'm not. There's going to be days where I really sad. I'm really sad that he left. Or I'm mad. Why'd you even go into that stuff? Or you're so smart. Why'd you do that? All of these things. And you'll kind of dip down into that and I feel it and I ride the wave and just be sad. And then sure enough, all of a sudden something will happen where I'll start seeing 1111 on my phone. Or another thing that just came to mind that people might experience was, and I thought this was amazing. This was just a few months ago. In the middle of the night, all of a sudden I hear the TV blaring at the top, like top volume. And it was like 3 in the morning. So I go downstairs. I thought maybe, my husband or my son or somebody had turned it on. No one's down there. So I thought, well, that's strange. And I turned it off. And I thought, now I'm open, right? So always just being open, like, is that spirit? So I asked that question, is that spirit? And I went back to bed. And then my alarm went off with a weird sound that I don't even have, like a whir, like some weird sound off. My alarm went off at a time I didn't even have set on the phone. So now I'm like, all right, this is odd. So I went downstairs and I, said, is this you, Sean? Trying to get to me. And I pick up my phone and there's a picture of Sean right on my screen. So they'll find all these beautiful, fun ways to get to you because I think that I don't think, I know that they're here rooting us on. And I don't think, I remember one time someone saying to me right after Sean had passed, and I was sad, and someone had said to me, well, he'd want you to be happy. And honestly, Sandra, I just wanted to smack that person. And they don't, like I have, they don't know any better. They hadn't lost a child or anything. And they were trying to cheer me up, but I just want to say that I know that our loved ones are strong enough to withstand when we're sad. And so it's okay. It's just got to be okay to feel that grief. Or else if we push it down, man, it shows up in all kinds of strange ways later on, I think.
I agree. As a parent, what would you want to hear from somebody? I hate to say it, but some people don't know what to say, so they take off. It happens all the time. People lose their friends. They're just like, well, what happened? I mean, I need you so much, and you're gone. But I think it's a fear of not knowing what to say. What is okay to
Yeah,
say?
I think that's a great question. It sounds so simple, but just saying, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm here for you. Just something that simple. Not trying to fix it, not trying to even, because I think that when you're in grief, especially in the very beginning, I was not thinking, oh, I can turn this into a way to help others with mediumship, or Sean can help others on the other side, or, like that's not where you're at. Where you're at is on your knees. And so even someone trying to frame it in those terms, you're not ready for it. You're just you're just stricken down. And so just saying, I'm here for you. I'm so sorry. I think another thing that's great is my stepmom had come over, didn't even ask, just came and started cleaning because I didn't have the wherewithal to even think what I would need. My neighbors, were so blessed with this group of neighbors, friends. They all just didn't ask. They all just started dropping food off at the front door. Some of our parents of our students, same thing. They just would just bring food. So just showing up because I don't think that, as your book just perfectly describes, and you're so generous, I did want to say that the little, I would say booklet, like you said, the little book, all proceeds go to, I mean, if there are any proceeds, they're going to go to We Don't Die because you were pivotal for me in getting myself out of the mud and helping parents heal because I want to know that in some way from something so sad and tragic I was determined to not let it pull me under. Does it pull me under? Absolutely. But I guess what I mean is I want there to be some kind of love and light and transmutation from that pain to something greater, if that makes any sense. And those two organizations, among others, Forever Family Foundation is another one that is just amazing. So there's a lot of organizations out there. I think it's also more okay to talk about these things. I don't think that 10 years ago, 20, now I did with some of my close friends, but I knew enough not to tell somebody I'm going to the beach and writing to angels, right? Like I didn't share that. And even that me sharing that with you now, Sandra, makes me feel a little bit vulnerable, but it is what it is. Here we are.
It is. And most people actually do believe. There's been studies that have been done, and it's over 70% of the people totally believe. I think it's actually higher than that. But as human beings, we're afraid of what people might think of us, so we keep our mouths shut. But the
Right.
fact is, everybody's had some kind of weird psychic experience, or know the phone's going to ring, or who it's going to be, or, had those signs. So people want to know. So I love that. And thank you very much for any donations. But if there's not many that come in, send them all Helping Parents Heal Way. It is just a great organization. I don't want to forget to ask you, you wanted to talk about manifestation versus precognition. Can we talk
Yes.
about that for a moment?
Yeah, and it's so funny because as you were talking about helping parents heal, that thought popped in my mind. I'm like, oh, I want to bring that up. So we're on the same wavelength here. Let me start. I'll start back. It's in the book, but I'll make mine small. When Sean was about, I've had downloads or things that would happen. Like I remember when I met my husband, I knew this was going to be the person I was going to marry. Little things like that. We've all had those. Every single person's had, like you just said, you don't know who's going to pick up the phone. When Sean was 12 and I was watching him walk into his room, and I just got this download that he won't live a long life. And I thought, why would I think that? I just was, what kind of a thought is that? And then you go into mama bear mode, which I can be admittedly very protective of my kids. I then said, well, I'm just gonna, cancer is rampant in my family, so I've had it. My brother, my mom died of it. I thought, well, I'll just take him to the doctor. I'll feed him well. No red dye number 40. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And never in my life did I think this kid was so straight and narrow that he would struggle with addiction. I've learned so much and have so much compassion for, a side note, anyone who struggles with addiction. Because I'll tell you what, you go into any of those AA rooms, you will meet some of the most sensitive souls that are walking this earth. And which is why that they use a substance. It's too hard to be here. So anyway, 3 weeks before he passed, now remember, he was sober for a year and a half. I thought everything was good. In fact, I just said to my girlfriend Joanna, I said, we're out of the woods. This is good. And 3 weeks before, I just got this download of fentanyl. And so again, I thought, why would I think that? I got in my car, I drove to Sean's apartment, and I took that gorgeous little face in my hands and I said, you can't relapse on anything, not even weed, fentanyl's and everything. And he said, of course, Mom, you don't have to worry about that. Because at the time, I don't think he was thinking that this was going to happen. And then it happened. So I had a real hard time with this at first because I was always, my dad would say when I was little, if Catherine wanted to walk through a wall, she'd find a way to walk through a wall. I was always just like determined. If I set a goal, I found a way to get there. And so with Sean, even though I had those premonitions, I thought, well, I'm going to beat this. And you hear all of this about manifestation, and visualize and be positive and all that. So oh my God, I visualized him as 35, happily sober and this and that. And I was really, and I'm going to be completely vulnerable in case there's someone out there else listening who's gone through this. I got to tell you, when my son crossed over, I was so angry at spirit. I was so angry because I felt I was always storming heaven. Archangel Michael, I had a little list of people that you know, and man, I was mad. I didn't see the full picture then. I thought, what the heck is this? What really opened my eyes was when I went to a Helping Parents Heal conference. They had these amazing, I would highly recommend if you can get to the conference. I went to the first conference, and I can't remember who the guest speaker was, but they got up and they said, how many parents here had a precognition or a feeling that this child of yours wasn't going to live long. Sandra, 80% of the parents raised their hands. And it was then I just got goosebumps. And it was then that I thought, oh my God. And as I went forward and kept studying, and I'm still studying with mediumship, I think I'll always be. There's always room to grow. And on more than one occasion, I would have a mom who thought that they had caused their child's death, for example, by, I don't know why, but I kept seeing, this type of cancer, or I don't know why, but I kept seeing this accident. Did I cause this by thinking about it? Did I manifest this? And I just want everyone to know, no, your soul is bigger than this timeline. And somehow you were able to precognitively see something that it's a train that just wasn't, it was out of the station and it was just on its way. You couldn't have stopped it even if you wanted to. So instead of blaming ourselves, realizing, okay, that's not that I couldn't stop it. I wasn't given a precognition for me to be able to control someone else's fate. But maybe I was given that precognition. And I'm speaking for all those parents and others who've had precognitions. Maybe I was given that precognition to understand that there's more to all of this than just a tragic mishap of a one-time slip up and being poisoned with fentanyl. In fact, my friend Cathy that I told you, I'm still in contact with her, of course, the one that passed when we were 32. She had written her parents a note about 2 years before she passed, and she doesn't know why she wrote it, but she wrote her parents a note and says, "Dear Mom and Dad, I don't know why I'm writing this." She was like 30 at the time. But I don't feel that I'm going to live a long life. I don't know why, but I want to let you know that you guys were the best parents that I could ever have. And she was worried about, she has a twin sister. We were all best friends. And I'm worried about her. I want her to be okay and all of this. She had no idea then why she wrote the note. Of course, her mom got this note. Who as a mom wants that? And her mom just tucked it aside. Didn't throw it away, but just tucked it aside. And somehow Cathy must have known, right? She didn't know she was going to be 5 months pregnant and her heart wouldn't be able to handle this. And I talked to her a couple days before she passed. She just happened to have like a heart attack and she went in and got air vac to UCLA and was in ICU, was going to have surgery the next day and she passed. So these are just two small examples, but I know that if you talk to other people, there's a lot of people who have seen something happen before it happens. So to maybe entertain the idea, because I never want to tell somebody what to do, what to think, anything, but just entertain the idea that perhaps you didn't create that. Perhaps it was precognition. Perhaps somehow you were able to get out of this linear timeline for a brief second and your soul was able to see something that's coming down the tracks. And perhaps it was a show of compassion by spirit to kind of brace you for what's going to come.
Good words, really good words. And you make me think of guilt with all of that. And I know when I did studying from grief in my book, guilt is just kind of like a byproduct of the brain. How can we not think of the what ifs and if onlys and things? But we can develop a habit for thinking and feeling guilty. So my recommendation, again, not a parent, but for those of us who felt guilt over things, the more we feel something, the more automatically we're going to keep doing it. So I would try to short circuit it as best as I could. Right before my dad passed away, his best friend called and said, "Could you hold the phone to your dad's ear? I just want to say goodbye to my best friend." And so I did. And it was a beautiful moment. And then I realized after the call was over, I held it to the wrong ear. Dad was deaf in that ear. And I tell you, the guilt that I had, and
Oh,
I'm not kidding you. I mean, chokes me up now. And I know Dad heard it, right? Like his soul heard it. But just the more I thought it, the more I kept thinking it. And then it wouldn't let me go. So what I would do is I'd try to short circuit it and say, "Hey, not now." And then I would have a memory of something happy, of something I'm grateful for, and try to just sit with the gratitude. And so sometimes, folks, we have to short circuit our thoughts because
Yeah.
human is tough.
It's, you know what? The brain is a tricky thing, right? Like it's a pattern seeking organ is all it is. And it's there to help us solve problems. It's there to help us figure things out. But man, it can get in the way sometimes. And what you're describing is rumination, right? Like this ruminating over and over about, I could have done this, I should have said this, I could have prevented this. And there are some things that are bigger than us. We just can't prevent that. And I do know that spirit on the others, I do know your dad would have known that his friend had said goodbye, right? But isn't it funny? I'm trying to practice like because I still do that, especially in the middle of the night, right? Once you wake up and it'll be something stupid that you're starting to spin on. And I'll be like, oh, there's that brain, like just trying to sit beside the brain, go, oh, there it is again, and just kind of laughing. Or I'll even be like, well, thank you, brain. I don't need you to do that right now, but thank you. Another thing that I've found that helps, I know a lot of times people will say to meditate, and not everybody can meditate. Some people will walk and that'll help them. Some people will do artwork or music. And I could have a brain that can go and go. I mean, I get where Sean was coming from. Not saying I was nearly as smart as Sean, I'll tell you that, but I found that if I just sat when I'm meditating, and I'll still do this, I just listen for a sound. And it might be the dishwasher. If I'm at the ocean, it's the waves. It might just be, some slight little, I don't have tinnitus, but some slight little sound. And it's almost like giving a dog a bone to chew on. It's like it's giving your brain something to work on. Okay, so you just listen to that sound. And it really helps kind of get your brain aside so that you can open your heart because it's really about being in the heart space, not not the brain space. But the guilt, I think, is another normal reaction. But I think you're so smart, Sandra, in recognizing it and just saying, "Oh, there it is again." Okay, I know that's a normal byproduct of guilt. I know that people all do this, and I know that it's not real. I know that I cannot control someone else's fate. I mean, you're talking to a mom here who I did everything to protect my son. Like, I mean, and I was that like if you got in my way, man, it was like don't, like that's and I feel that way about all my children. So especially for parents, our whole being. And you know what? I don't care what anyone says. You can relate with your pets, right? You know what that's like. Your mom. I'm sure you're extremely protective of your mom. Like we just love these people so much. But just to kind of know that there's we don't have control over everything. Just to ease into that a little bit and give ourselves a little bit of a break. I think it's very normal to have the guilt, but I was able to, a therapist had one time given me afterward I thought I got to go to therapy and work this out. And I did find someone who was open to spirit and all of that. Thank gosh. I would highly recommend that too, not someone who says you got to leave them behind, right? And she gave me the best homework. Go home and say, what would you do different? And I went and I thought of every single thing I did since that kid was born, and I wouldn't change a thing. I know that I did the absolute best I could. And that set me free a little bit. I came back and I said, I don't know what else I could have done. And it was just this sense of freedom. So even with your story, was the intention there to help your dad? Yeah, that's all we have is our intention and our love, right?
You're absolutely right. And as far as guilt goes, we human beings do the best job we can with the circumstances we have. So it doesn't serve anybody to ruminate as what could have been. Because if we could have done something differently, we would have. Kathy, oh, go ahead. Did you want to say
Oh, I
something?
just said exactly, exactly.
Yeah, before we depart, I know you are a medium, and there will be people that think, I really would like to talk to this gal. Is it
Oh,
okay to send them to your website,
of
CathyMcHugh.com?
course, of
Okay.
course. Yeah. And but I mean, it's really this isn't why I wanted, that you and I talked, it was
I know, but I just want
really
to
about the
share.
book. Yeah, and I would recommend, you brought up, I would recommend highly looking into, explore mymediumship.com or explore other avenues, asking your loved ones to guide you. Of course, I'm especially connected to Phil and Carrie because I just, like I said, I love the integrity. I love how they break things down. They're very logical because believe it or not, I'm very left-brained. But just asking your loved ones to guide you to someone. That's what I think too. But taking a class or two, and I think helps because you start to understand yourself and you understand that you're a soul, and it's like our body is within our soul. It's not like our soul is within our body. Our body is within our soul. Almost like Sean showed me how it's not the afterlife. He showed me that it's like our world within their world. It's kind of strange. Almost like the Russian dolls. Do you remember those Russian
Yeah.
stacking dolls? That's how he showed it to me. But exploring that, for those who aren't sure or are doubtful for themselves, that's great. Be doubtful and explore. Like say, okay, I'm doubtful. Maybe I'm going to take this class and play and just kind of have the attitude of, well, I'm here now. I can't get my loved one back. Let's see where this takes me.
And you have to be okay with being wrong to be right. And I tell you, magic happens in those breakout rooms.
Yeah. Yeah,
Everything within us is like, I don't want to do it. I'm going to be wrong. No, be okay with being wrong and
yeah.
just say what's coming into your feelings and your
Yes.
imaginations. And I always tell people, because Carrie, Phil, and myself and a group of others really are on a mission to raise the level of mediumship in the world because
Yes.
people in grief are some of the people in the most pain in the world. And if you had physical pain, you'd go to a doctor. If you have grief, people think medium, but mediums aren't trained like doctors. Some people get no training. Some people take a weekend course. Some people just think they
Right.
have the gift and charge zillions of dollars and are terrible. So
Yeah.
when you pick a medium, be comfortable in your price range. Always, always, always make sure the medium has a 10-minute guarantee. In that
Yes.
first 10 minutes, you should definitely feel, both the medium and yourself should feel that they really have my loved one here. And when
Yes.
you work with the medium, only say yes, no, or I don't know. Don't let them fish. I got a woman here. I got an M here. Oh, you go, oh, it's mom. No, no, no. Let them do the work. So help us to get the level of mediumship up in the world. People that
Yeah,
are
just saying
listening.
yes or no or I don't know in the very beginning, especially because then you're building the evidence. I think the most important thing is that I'll say to my clients, please don't tell me anything because then I get to stay in my heart. But it's more important for the sitter. So the sitter walks away saying, I did not tell her, that my dad gave me that turtle. How would she have known my dad gave me a turtle, that I used to paint its nails? Like, there's no way. That was actually a real reading, which is adorable, and just having love for, I think it's important whoever they go to, someone who has love for spirit and knows that these are people, these are people that you're talking to in spirit, and someone who wants to have an open heart and love your loved one in spirit, because isn't that what it's about, and as well as the sitter. Phil and Carrie had said one time, and it was, I remember, I think it was Phil, and it helped me so much. You're really there for the people in spirit. Like, so you're working for the people in spirit. That helped me so much because then it took the pressure off of if I'm right or wrong. No medium is going to be 100% right, because it's going through their filter. But it's like, oh, I love these people. And I got to tell you, I have met so many lovely, lovely people in spirit. Your loved ones are right here, and they are rooting for you and just waiting for the time for you to be able to hear them in whatever way. The other thing I would recommend, and I know that not everybody feels this way, but I would recommend not constantly going back to medium. I know I have a full-time job. I'm a teacher for the blind, right? So this is a little side thing. But anybody who's saying to you, "Oh, keep coming back," keep coming back every week or think, I'd be hesitate because I think the most important thing, the thing that I always want to encourage is, okay, now you know they're here. So how do you make the connection? Because it's really about building this new relationship, and you're building a new language. You're going to start talking through numbers and signs and husky dogs or turtles or however else they want to show up. But you're just having this new relationship with them, and you just got to figure out how to do it, is what it is. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And you'll be on our Sunday gathering again sometime, I think, in this fall. And we have that free Sunday gathering,
Yeah.
inspirational service, 2 p.m. New York time, 11
Yeah.
a.m. Pacific time on Zoom. We're in our 6th year now. It's inspirational, it's motivational, it's empowering. And the last half, which is about 45 minutes, is a medium demonstration. So you get to just see how close our loved ones are. It's always so joyful, isn't it?
It is. And that's the other thing I wanted to say about helping parents heal is they didn't call themselves grieving parents, it's shining light parents. So I mean that's what the book is about, is just trying to find some way. Yes, it's painful, but how do we imagine if everybody from the tragedies or the traumas they've gone through, and it doesn't have to just be a physical loss. Imagine if every single one of us on this earth thought, okay, this is terrible and devastating, but where's the little gold nugget in this? How can I grow from this? How can I be a better person? How can I shine my light or be a little bit more loving? Gosh, could you imagine what this world would be like if every single person did that instead of taking that pain and throwing it on other people and situations?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or internalizing it. That's what we do too.
Oh,
Well,
that's a terrible thing. Yeah. Yep. Same
yeah.
thing. It's the same thing.
Cathy, any final words for our time together today before I send you home?
Yeah.
Well, you are home, but
Just knowing that your loved ones are here. I feel them. I feel like there's this a room full of people right now. They love you. And honestly, I just have to express gratitude for you, Sandra. I would listen to the We Don't Die podcast like ever all the time, and to Helping Parents Heal Forever Foundation, and all of the people who are brave enough to come out now and start talking about this, because I think that I do think that there's a tipping point, right? And I think the tipping point has happened where there's enough people where you can talk about this and it doesn't clear a room so much anymore. People don't look at you like you're a weirdo as much, you know?
or we're all weirdos together.
Well, that's probably really the truth.
But we have a lot of fun, don't we? We
Yes,
do.
we
We
do.
do.
It's okay. Yeah. You're,
Kathy, thank you so much for being our guest today.
thank you. Thank you, Sandra.
Oh,
And
really enjoyed
love
it.
to
And
everyone
for
out there.
our listener or our viewer, The Choice to Rise, Free Will in the Face of Tragedy. Just a nice handbook to keep handy. You can also visit Cathy's website at cathymchugh.com. And for our listener or our viewer, thank you for taking the time to be here. We're now over 500 episodes, which is crazy. And this show is strictly interviews. I also have my Shades of the Afterlife podcast on iHeartRadio, and that is me reporting in on the afterlife. So there can be lots of different topics within one episode. You want to be sure to check that out. If you are a big fan of this stuff, I do have a Patreon community, and I now have between both shows over 750 episodes. So I talk about it all: near death experiences, deathbed visitations, signs, you name it, we talk about it. Most importantly is for you to know that your loved one is around and your life goes on. You'll see them again. Your life is for a purpose. You matter. So remember, come visit me at wedon'tdie.com. So in closing, I just really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.